So, I'm going to be following up on a subject from last week, and that is Captain America Brave New World. I had some things to say about the box office, essentially saying, look, it's performed well for a movie, but for MCU, it's kind of, is this really that great, right? It did okay for what you would expect out of the MCU. However, this weekend, the movie had a pretty drastic drop in the US. Long-term success doesn't look like it's going to be there for this movie. It doesn't have legs. Basically, we're looking at just another 28.2 million domestically over the last 3 days, bringing its total United States and Canada to date up to 141.2 million. That may sound like a lot for a 2-week haul for a movie, but that's a pretty drastic drop. What is it? 68%. Almost 100 million the first weekend, boom, dropped down to 28.2. A little bit crazy there. Obviously, it's going to get, more money from overseas, but it's just not holding the way that such a big franchise does, especially, again, we're using Captain America. That is one of the biggest names in comic books and superheroes. So I just kind of wanted to put that out there. I was kind of a little bit right about that. But really, I wanted to talk about Hideo Kojima's reaction. I saw this post earlier on Twitter, and to me, it's kind of cool to see this coming from someone like him, because he's a very, very, very avid moviegoer, especially American movies. He sees a lot, and he'll post about it all the time. He'll tell you how great something was, what he thought of the actors, things like that. So he's not like a casual. He's a very big movie guy, and we're talking Hideo Kojima here. He kind of knows about storytelling and creative works. His reaction, though, was, I watched Captain America Brave New World in IMAX. I vaguely remember Sam receiving the shield in Endgame. But when did he officially become Cap? Is it because I haven't seen The Falcon and the Winter Soldier? And what's this about the Avengers being reorganized? I'm also getting it mixed up with the Thunderbolts trailer. So he's kind of saying what the majority of the movie-going audience is thinking, which would also account for the major drop in box office. You had your hardcore Marvel and MCU fans that went and saw this movie right up front, and that's about all that's going to be seeing this movie. You are left with such a sprawling, convoluted universe, and not just movies. It's no longer, and for years now, is it you can go see a movie every couple years and know what's going on in this franchise. Even a movie every year. One movie, right? Or there's a couple different movies in a year. It's not like that. There are multiple television series running. There are the movies that are coming out. And then there's other media tie-ins to all this. For you to sometimes be able to go into one of these movies and have a clue what's going on, you have to have watched 30, 40, 50, 60 hours of television. On top of that, and again, only your most hardcore people are going to do that. There's a comment here in response that I think is one of the biggest L takes or R takes I've ever seen. In response to what he said, this person on Twitter said, to be fair, that lack of knowledge is completely on you. If this is a complaint, it's not a legitimate complaint. Casuals don't get to say they are confused when they skip several chapters. Sorry, bud. Well, see, that's just not how entertainment works. There are far deeper, more complex, and interesting universes out there that you can literally just watch a movie and understand what's going on. A movie doesn't necessarily have to be fully self-contained. It can be part of a greater whole. It can be part of a greater set of media. However, it does need to be a complete story that explains itself to the viewer. That basically, somebody who has never seen this movie before, like say any one of the, for instance, Mission Impossible films, Jurassic Park films, almost any Star Trek film, almost any Star Wars film, really almost all these movies, even if you haven't seen the ones prior, you can jump into and watch and get what's going on, because it properly introduces characters, it properly introduces storylines, it properly moves the plot along in a way that's sensical without having watched 3, 4, 5 movies before, or 10, 12 50 hours of TV series. That's just good storytelling. This is one of the worst takes I've seen in regards to the MCU, and Hideo Kojima's reaction and the box office reaction are one of the biggest indicators of exactly that's what's going on. So as a gamer, most of us have played a variety of genres, a variety of games, many different mechanics that are used in those games, and many different combinations of those mechanics. We all find things that are pretty annoying. Some of them are kind of universal. And today, Apogee Entertainment, who, if you don't know who they are, look them up. They're one of the all-time greats. Like, they were making really, really incredible DOS games back in the day. Keen, the Commander Keen series. Then, of course, they were publishing like Duke Nukem and games like that. So Apogee Entertainment posted, "You get to remove one annoying game mechanic forever. What are you picking?" And there's some really great responses. There's some I don't fully agree with. Most survival mechanics, food, water, cold, and heat, in almost every instance are just annoying, grindy, and limiting. I don't know about that. Like, if that's the game you're playing, yeah, but it depends. It depends on how they're used, for sure. Not being able to skip through dialogue once you've already heard it. So that's a really good one. But I would expand on that, not just dialogue. Cyberpunk 2077 is one of my favorite games. I played it at launch on the Series X. Absolutely loved it. Then it kept getting patched and made even better and better and better. And honestly, I tried to play it again a second and third time, and because I completed it, beat the game, loved it. Always intended to replay it and try playing it a different way, taking different paths and starting with a different background. And especially with the new Phantom Liberty expansion, I still haven't played that. I would want to do a full restart, because apparently they've done a lot of work on the mechanics of the game and just the way it's set up in general. And they've recommended, many people have recommended, I believe the developers as well. Honestly, if you're going to go in to play Phantom Liberty, maybe just do a complete restart, because things are so different now. It'll let you go through the game and then rebuild a character like that, which I want to do. The problem is, the first, an hour? Maybe, I think it's an hour. It feels longer than that, though. But the entire prologue in the game, with the story of Jackie and everything, I mean, I would feel like that's not spoiling anything, but with the whole story of Jackie and everything, introducing you to the world, the characters, the mechanics, and just all that stuff, that's great and all, but there's really only a couple ways that it plays out, to be honest. And it's kind of tedious to have to replay through that whole segment to just get back to playing the main game, the story and everything. So that has kept me from restarting, doing another playthrough on Cyberpunk for at least 2 years. Is just the thought of God, I've got to do all that crap at the beginning again just to get to the game. So totally agree with that one. The one for me, there was another good one. It was escort missions. Now, they don't just mean escort missions, because they really make sense in many settings, and I don't mind them. The problem is escort missions when the character you're escorting's walking speed is somewhere between your walking speed and your running speed, so you can never actually just stay at the correct speed to follow them or escort them. That's definitely an issue. Mine, number one by far, crafting. I feel like there are many games that would be far, far, far more fun if half the mechanics were not padded out by the fact that you have to craft things. A friend of mine had just recently played Far Cry Primal and reminded me that I own Far Cry Primal. I had bought the Ultimate Edition or whatever it was 5-6 years ago. It was on sale on Xbox, and for a couple bucks or something. I was really excited. I was like, yeah, I'm gonna try this. I had an impression of what the game was going to be based on magazine articles and stuff for years before that. It was nothing like that. However, it would have also been a lot more fun if half the game wasn't crafting and trying to build a village or whatever it is. Same problem I have with Fallout 4. You miss out on a lot of gameplay and a lot of things because if you don't want to take part in building your little community. Like, there's so many games where it feels like it's just, we'll tack in crafting as a way to pad out the gameplay because we don't have something better to put there. Just leave it out and the game is better. I'm not a fan of crafting. But there are many more on this subject. If you have any you'd like to mention, go ahead and just drop that in the comments as well. So, multiplayer crossplay. I feel like this is going to be one where people do not agree with me unless they have faced the same issues. I feel like there's more people that don't like it these days than you might think. Back in the day on Xbox Live, it's crazy how many current features and such exist that we all discussed in Xbox Live parties or, you know, chats and stuff like that, or in game lobbies. Because back in the day, there was actually a multiplayer lobby, like for Gears of War, for instance. You actually met up with all kinds of random people and then had to sit and like communicate with them before the matches and between the rounds and all that kind of stuff. There was actual community. But anyways, back then we would discuss a lot of things, and with the rise of the social aspect of Xbox, you know, the online multiplayer being in basically every game, it was kind of universal at that point, but also the features. Unlike the original Xbox, you had a friends list, if I recall, in like individual games. You know, like, so if you were playing Halo 2, you had a friends list in Halo 2 and you had a username in Halo 2. But it wasn't like universal across everything, and your communication wasn't universal. You basically had to be in the game to talk. When it came to Xbox 360, it kind of changed the game. Xbox 360 had private chats where you could literally just talk one-on-one with somebody else over chat while you played games. And then later they expanded it to the party system. Wasn't a huge fan of that because it took away from those multiplayer lobbies where that was how you had to communicate and talk to people and your team and such. But either way, you spent a lot of time when you were gaming back in the day talking with people, whether it was about life, whether it was about the latest, you know, anime you watched, or it didn't matter, right? But we would consistently talk about gaming, like Xbox, and like what we hoped for in the future. Many of those things actually came to exist. Downloadable games became a common thing toward the end of the Xbox 360, and then now they're the norm for everything. Downloadable content, being able to expand games, became the norm on everything. All the different communication abilities, your profiles and statuses, and, you know, your achievements, you know, all that kind of stuff, right? One of the things we did talk about occasionally, and we didn't really understand the ramifications that it might have, was crossplay. I wasn't a huge fan. I was like, no, if you want to play on Xbox, you buy an Xbox. I don't care about playing with PlayStation people. That was just the way it was back then, right? It was PlayStation versus Xbox, and we were all better off for it. But anyways, it was talked about a lot, the idea of being able to play multiplayer games with other consoles. Well, we have that. And that is actually kind of great, you know? The ability to hop online and have mixed lobbies between Call of Duty or Borderlands or whatever it is you happen to play, Diablo or something, right? Or a game like First Descendant, you know, just all these online games and multiplayer games. It does help keep the community alive and give more players and the ability to communicate with your friends who might happen to be playing on a different platform. The problem is not playing against other console players. I don't care about Xbox versus PlayStation. There's similarly closed networks and closed, you know, ecosystems. It's having to play against PC players. Now, if you're playing an MMO, okay, it probably works. If you're playing a cooperative multiplayer game or something like that, it works. But when you're doing PvP, in particular, I'm just going to Call of Duty. For me, it's Call of Duty Warzone. When you have to play against PC players, it's both the fact that they're playing on mouse and keyboard 90% of the time, so that is an issue, where you're restricted in ways. I prefer controller. I feel like it's the better experience for gaming. It's a three-dimensional tactile thing. Rumble motors, the thumbsticks, triggers, bumper, like it basically adds a tactile experience, to gaming that mouse and keyboard just simply cannot provide. But They are playing on that, and it is faster. It's more reactive. There's so much going on there, and then their hardware, can be tweaked in different ways too. But then there's cheats and exploits and all these other things that come along with that you do not face when you're playing other console players. So for all the boons and benefits of multiplayer crossplay, I think one of the worst ones that actually sometimes makes these games unbearable when it comes to, in particular, multiplayer shooters, is having to play against PC. At the very least, because I do have friends that play on PC and I like to be able to play with them. One of my best friends, he plays everything on PC. So if we want to play Warzone, we have to play together. I would be willing to do that if I also had the option to go turn off crossplay when I'm playing by myself and I'm playing solo or something like that, and I just don't want to deal with playing against PC players. Like, give us that freedom. The fact that they don't give you the option is really frustrating, especially in games like Call of Duty, especially in free-to-play games like Warzone, where there's such a massive player base that you really don't have to worry that much about whether or not you can fill lobbies.